The problem is, we've abandoned any and all absolute moral principles on which to stand to rightly condemn anyone consistently. Idolatry is idolatry is idolatry, and it always makes you stupid. And the longer it is held on to, and the more high places that are erected, the harder and more violent reforms become. And erecting more high places to combat the other high places fixes nothing. I don't know if you all have noticed, but it's actually an election year. From what I am being told, it's the most important election of our lifetime, just like the one before that and the one before that. Given this, I thought I would give some reflections on the state of things, as I have done in years past. However, this year may be a little more shenanigan-y, and perhaps may cause a little more trouble than usual. But I am getting old and crotchety, and I really don't care. And saying I told you so is starting to really get old. So you've been warned. There you go. Also, I thought I should mention that what follows is just a series of random thoughts that are in no particular order, particularly in order of importance. And again, you've been warned. First, people suck. That's right. People absolutely suck. On the left and the right, but mostly on the left. Actually, entirely on the left. They don't just suck, they are freaking nuts. However, as to not discriminate, everyone else sucks too. We are where we are at as a nation because we've let things get this way. We are responsible for it, and we have gotten exactly what we deserve. Our country is a reflection of our lives, and we absolutely hate what we see, so we blame anybody other than ourselves. The problem is, we've abandoned any and all absolute moral principles on which to stand to rightly condemn anyone consistently. Idolatry is idolatry is idolatry, and it always makes you stupid. And the longer it is held on to, and the more high places that are erected, the harder and more violent reforms become. And erecting more high places to combat the other high places fixes nothing. There is no way out of this mess without deep repentance. There is no election and no politician that is going to fix this, because our problem is a sin problem. You get what you tolerate, and we have tolerated far too much for far too long, and frankly, we are screwed. As a result, we've become a joke and are doing everything in our power to distract ourselves from the reality of the situation. This is, in part, why our political discourse sounds more like a bad reality show than anything that resembles philosophical debate. Second, we lack any and all resolve. The fact of the matter is that nothing will change until it is forced to change. And because we've gone down a particular route for so long, that won't happen without great sacrifice and an extremely motivated minority with uncompromising principles that is willing to pay the price. Unfortunately, I just don't believe we are anywhere close to that yet, which is why we have miles and miles of bad road in front of us. You can say whatever you want about the civil rights movement and how there were actually a lot of nefarious players involved, and you would be right. However, there were a lot of horrible things happening and abuses that had been tolerated for far too long that led many to simply say enough is enough, and I would rather die than live like this. Because of that, their principles superseded their circumstances, which enabled them to endure much and sacrifice much, like beatings, imprisonment, and confiscation of property, to name a few things. We are nowhere near that, not even close. A lot of people's eyes were open during all of the COVID crazy and panic porn. However, they went right back to normal as soon as they could, almost forgetting entirely what had just happened. Unfortunately, far too many think that just seeing the play that is being run on them is enough, but it's not. You actually have to play defense. A good defense actually destroys the opposing team's offense. We think defense means saying, after the fact, I see what you did there, and I don't like it. while we let it happen over and over and over again. The fact of the matter is, the Overton window has shifted and will continue to shift until we shut the damn window and have the house moved, and we just aren't there yet. For example, parents will go to school board meetings after school board meetings in order to complain about all of the horrible things being taught in public schools, while at the same time continuing to send their kids to public schools. Let's just forget for a minute that the public schools are, by definition, the biggest and most expensive socialist program we have. The fact of the matter is, you can bitch all you want about schools, but as long as you continue to send your kids there, or even support their existence, you are part of the problem. I bring up the public schools here because they are a pretty good picture of where the conservatives are at today. When you concede the principle, you concede all of the consequences that follow. Education is a ministry of the home, and not the state, federal, or local. Until parents own the authority given to them by God, they will continue to abrogate said authority and send their kids to Caesar. And Caesar doesn't much care whether you bitch about it along the way, because the end result is still a Roman population. A principle is only a principle if it is backed up by action, and to date, I don't see that conservatives have any. Another area where this is painfully clear is regarding abortion and the pro-life industry. That is, pro-life only kind of, mostly, some of the time. This was also seen in the overturning of Roe, which was swiftly and aptly apologized for. Third, we are living through a national reality show. We should be embarrassed by the national discourse. Think about how base we have become. Polls are taken showing what people care about, and instead of seeing this as an opportunity to ask ourselves what sphere of authority, home, church, or state, that can actually effectuate any real change in those areas, we are talking about Hunter Biden and prostitutes and Trump and porn stars, and the President of the United States wandering off and crapping his pants. All of this is so messed up. It's human nature. We simply can't help ourselves. Whenever we drive by a car accident, we can't help but look, as if our gawking actually helps anything. As a nation, we've stopped the car and gotten out and are now eating popcorn at the accident and are doing so without any degree of shame whatsoever. Fourth, the Republic is already gone. I said this after the 2020 election, which I believe was the nail in the coffin. I believe Democrats already know this, and Republicans, as usual, are always Johnny-come-lately to the party. I believe the cheating was so bad and so public that it was meant to completely demoralize the American people. The bully flexed and took our lunch money and said, "What are you going to do about it?" It wasn't just all of the cheating that went on regarding 2020. It was also having Biden as president. I believe his presidency is meant to demoralize the nation. In essence, it is as if the intelligentsia is saying, we can do whatever the hell we want, and there is nothing you can do about it. Just look at who we put in the White House. If I could describe Biden in theological terms, I would say that he is a piece of shit. Did I just say the quiet part out loud? I think that I did. The guy is a disgusting, corrupt, rapist, and pedophile, and is an embarrassing skid mark on our nation. I believe his daughter's diary and multiple women's testimonies regarding this supports the above statement. But even above and beyond that, I believe his public behavior, which we've all seen, supports this. You don't need to be in ministry for decades to know that people generally behave much better in public than they do in private. We ought to be absolutely disgusted by his behavior towards children in public when he is guarded. His public behavior alone is enough to damn him. What in the world do you think this man is doing in private? His weekend at Bernie's presidency is enough to damn us all. The guy can't complete a sentence, walk outside without falling, seemingly forgets where he is at and wanders off repeatedly, and has a nasty habit of shitting himself regularly. Do you really believe this is the most popular president in American history? Do you really believe that this is the greatest leader that our country has to offer? Biden being the president is intentional. People who are ashamed lose the resolve to fight. Fifth, Trump is actually a massive douchebag. Again, I just said the quiet part out loud. The guy is a serial adulterer who pays porn stars to have sex with him and then pays them off not to talk about it. That much is indisputable. Now, if you feel yourself getting upset that I would say that, shame on you. The trial and conviction regarding all of that was an absolute show, as was everything else that was thrown at him during his presidency. But just because the people going after him are scumbags doesn't mean that he is a good guy. I think we lose a lot of credibility because we are unwilling to say this out loud. In fact, I haven't heard anyone say it yet. I think this is for a couple of reasons. First, and probably foremost, is that people are afraid to say it because they don't want to hurt his chances, and because they hate the left so much and believe, rightly so, that they are on a witch hunt and don't want to give them anything. Second, people just don't care. When we get to the point where we can't call a spade, we're all screwed. As far as people not caring, they should, and they should care deeply. If a man treats his wives, notice I said wives that way, repeatedly cheating on them, how will he treat the country? It's an honest question that should be asked. Not only that, the guy never repented of it, let alone apologized for it. In part because he of all people knows it would be political suicide, and in part because it's who he actually is. Do I believe that Trump loves our country? I absolutely believe he does. Far more than anyone else in our government right now, but that's not saying a lot. I believe he loves our country as much as he loved his multiple wives at the time, but again, apparently, that's not saying that much either. Also, even though Trump got completely screwed regarding the 2020 election, I think things actually worked out for him. First, people don't remember how his presidency ended. They just remember that he got screwed and that the left was on a witch hunt the whole time. The left single-handedly is responsible for making Trump a cult hero and a martyr, of which the latest 34 criminal convictions, which the following funds raised, attest. The godly troublemaker exists to shine the light of Christ in the eyes of the idols of our day. We are able to do this because we are entirely listener-supported, which makes us cancel-proof and beholden to none. Your gifts of any amount support godly troublemaking and enable us to cut straight in a crooked world. Thanks for your support. However, all of this overlooks the fact that he was president while all of the COVID crazy happened. He takes credit for the vaccine, even calling it the Trump vaccine. He got played again and again and again, and I believe learned nothing from that. You can blame all of that on the people that were around him. Even if I concede that point, he is still to blame. Trump is like a husband wearing a shirt labeled, "I'm with stupid." Not to mention the fact that the Trump economy, that everyone seems to remember, was going to go into the crapper due to inflation because of all the money printed during COVID under his administration that he still justifies. Granted, Biden made everything worse by printing more money and shutting down pipelines, but if we can't be honest regarding Trump and demand something different next time around, why would we expect anything different? Fool me twice, shame on me. The fact of the matter is, none of this is me supporting Biden. Not at all. I just denounced the guy in the strongest terms possible. Nor is this me supporting any Democrat. I would vote for a poop-chucking monkey at the zoo before ever voting for a Democrat. There is only so much poop a monkey can chuck, after all. However, this is not an endorsement of any Republican. I think they suck as well, just not as bad. 6. Politics has become our religion. I believe it was Francis Schaeffer who said that when there is no God above the state becomes God. When this is the case, everything descends into warring factions and tribalism. This is terrifying because then your party becomes your religion and is defended as such. Your God will always be infallible, which is why many treat their parties the way that they do today, which is why many of you may still be fuming at what I said about Biden or Trump. If so, you're an idolater. You're welcome. Seventh, we've become a nation of popularity whores. When the number of followers, shares, likes, or people at your rallies or whatever celebrity endorsement one receives is more important than principles, it just shows how easy we are to manipulate. We are damned if we do and damned if we don't. If Trump loses, we're screwed. Not just because the Democrats are a bunch of commies and are insane, but also because people know the play that was run on them last time. Is it likely that the Democrats will run a different play? Sure, absolutely it is. Also just as likely that all the Republican talking heads will come out and encourage everyone not to jump to conclusions until after the inauguration when the damage is already done and it will cost them nothing to talk about. I think we are also damned if Trump gets in, because I think the left will lose their minds again and bring out their paid militia again. I also don't think anyone on the right has the resolve to deal with that, because all the good old boys know that they will end up in jail because we have so bastardized our justice system and that it is wicked and demonic. Either way, we have miles of bad road in front of us. However, it should be noted that I much prefer the Trump bad road as opposed to another Biden term or any other Democrat being anywhere near any position of authority. Ninth, when winning the election becomes the end goal, nobody wins. I fully understand that elections have consequences, some immediate and some long-term. I fully understand that when the wicked rule, the righteous hide themselves, and when the wicked perish, they rejoice. I get it. However, winning an election is not the end, and when politics is placed over principle at any point along the way, we are in trouble. Not too long ago, we put out a random thoughts and shenanigans, where I said that the pro-life industry is not as pro-life as they advertise. In that episode, I also said that unless women are held accountable for having an abortion, then nothing would ultimately change. As one can imagine, that's not the most popular position out there. What stood out to me were the messages I got from other Christians telling me that though they don't disagree with me in principle, they think I should tone it down because we won't win any elections talking like that. Principles should dictate political discourse and not vice versa. I can tell you clearly, emphatically, and unapologetically that when people talk that way, they never actually get around to talking that way. That is, as the old saying goes, what you win them with, you win them too. Which is to say, those same people who are very principled behind closed doors usually leave their principles behind closed doors after the election is won. 10th, the church is to blame. The church is the pillar and buttress of truth. Because of this, I believe that the church is actually influencing the culture and not vice versa, a fact that few would be willing to admit. But again, idolatry makes you stupid. I believe that we see so much inconsistency and outright hypocrisy in the world because it's all over in the church. Having women and homosexuals serve in leadership in the church is the equivalent of Gays for Palestine or tranny conservatives, or the guy at the Trump rally holding up a Make America Great Again sign while he is on his third marriage, or all of the biddies on Fox News espousing conservative values while their boobs are hanging out. Our country lacks resolve because the church lacks resolve. We are all in for Christ as long as being all in doesn't require that much. We are all in until we could possibly catch a cold, or we're told by the government or any other paid professional who obviously doesn't have an agenda not to go to church. Then we are very resolved to make sure those who are resolved stop causing so much division. Also, the reason our national discourse sounds more like a bad reality show is because of all of the fluff coming out of the church. Most sermons are without form or substance and are just trite and self-serving. Because of this, we lack the moral authority that comes from the Word of God that demands substance and weight and can go to the world and say, knock it off. The reason why we are not ashamed of our leaders' actions and the discourse that ensues is because we are not ashamed of our own. The republic is lost, not necessarily because the church is lost, That much would be impossible, but rather because she has lost her way. I am not being hyperbolic about the Republic being dead. Whatever was, what it was that we loved is dead. The left knows this and is quickly scrambling to rebuild it after some bastardized ideal of utopia. The right is still busy trying to revive a cut flower. It was beautiful while it lasted, and the fragrance lingered for a time, but it is dead. The sooner we realize this, the sooner we can begin to plant the seeds of a more beautiful and lasting republic. When the church coulda, shoulda, woulda flexed, she didn't. If she doesn't now, we are all going to find out just how un-utopia-like the left's utopia really is. Also, because so many in the church jumped on the Trump derangement syndrome train, it created an equal and opposite reaction, which is almost equivalent to Trump worship. Trump certainly isn't above reproach. I think I made that much evident. However, there are those in the evangelical community that think he is the Antichrist, not because of any reasons they have developed on their own, but rather because they were told that he was. In my opinion, these paragons of virtue have absolutely no credibility in denouncing Trump, not because there isn't an ample amount of material there, but rather because they refuse to denounce anyone in the Democratic Party. Why not? Because they were not told to. In my opinion, those people are worse than Trump. Trump may be a douchebag, but those evangelical leaders are whores just spreading their legs to the highest bidder with the hopes of looking important or popular, preferably both. As far as anyone who actually worships Trump, you're retarded. Politics has become a national religion, not because the church is obsessed with politics, but rather because she has been repeatedly told that the church is not about politics, which has led to the unlikely result of the church only talking about politics while not being political. It shouldn't be any wonder to us that our nation has become a nation of popularity whores, because the church has become a church of popularity whores. Nobody wants to go to a church whose numbers are dwindling, no matter how faithful and fruitful the preaching may actually be. Have a conversation with just about anyone in the church, and you will soon come to find out that numbers are not only the clearest sign of God's blessing, but also justify any and every action. This happens across the board, and the Reformed are no exception. They just make being a slut sound more holy. What about being damned if we do and damned if we don't? Well, when there is reform in the church, it is usually accompanied by bloodshed. Those who gain power as a result of a weak church and are more than happy to play God usually are not as equally happy when they are told they are not. The reason we believe that we need to win an election before we can tell people what we actually believe is because this is a lie we have been telling ourselves in the church for decades. I just had this conversation the other day where I told an elder at a local megachurch how weak and feckless I thought their corporate worship was. He proceeded to assuage my fears by letting me know that the real teaching happens in the small groups and that Sunday mornings, well, they're for evangelism. First, this is unbiblical and retarded. Second, those people can't actually be won to anything on Sunday morning because there is no evangel present. Third, this supposed real teaching that happens in the small groups is flowing from the same stream that bastardized Sunday mornings, which makes me a little less than optimistic about what's being taught. When politics drives principles and not the other way around, the end result is that you have no principles. Conclusion. A while back, we released a random thoughts and shenanigans entitled, "We Will Lose." A kind and thoughtful woman responded and said, "I agree with you, but what's the first move, and the second, and the third?" She was right to ask this question because I provided no such answers in that episode, where I was simply stating that if we continue down a particular road, this is what we can expect. Honestly, there is no simple answer to this, in that there is no answer that will not come without great sacrifice. Also, there is no quick fix to this mess either. All of this sucks big time, and so many of us want to do something but don't know what to do. And there aren't any leaders in the public square that have provided a bigger vision of how to fix the mess that we are in. All of this has a compounding effect on our frustrations. I think the most important thing anyone can do is start with themselves and their own homes. Repent where you need to repent. Start over where you need to start over. Unplug where you need to unplug. Get your house in order first. What is pleasing to the Lord? What does God want for you and your family? Answer those questions and then do that and then do it again. Find a good church, serve where you can and when you are able. I think so many people obsess over politics because it feels like they are actually doing something and contributing something and are in the know, when in actuality it's just a ruse. We prefer to watch the reality show instead of seeing the reality that is right in front of our face. Asking how to fix the country sounds good, but it is way harder and way more fruitful to work on fixing yourself little by little, day after day. Another thing I would advise is unplugging. Stop watching the news. You can't do anything about it, and it only increases your anxiety and fear regarding all of these things. Plus, almost everyone in the media is an attention whore. Losing their audience may be the only thing that forces them to reflect on things and change. Also, for the love of God, get your kids out of government schools. I have been beating this drum for 18 years now. I have seen this bear much fruit in my own children and in many others. If parents begin removing their children from the public schools en masse, then 20 years from now, we might see some actual real change. As far as the immediate election is concerned, I think it is a hot mess. I voted for Trump in 2016 and in 2020 unapologetically, and I think Christians can do so again with a clear conscience given the options. However, if you can't vote for Trump, I fully understand and would never tell someone to violate their conscience. What I would say is that a Christian under no circumstances can support the Democratic Party. Their platform is Antichrist to the core. I can understand someone not voting. In fact, I've questioned whether or not this isn't the best course of action at this point, given the state of things. However, the stupidest thing that someone could do who doesn't like Trump is then vote for Biden. There is absolutely nothing respectable about that. In fact, I think it's damnable. It should go without saying, so let me say it. None of these thoughts are completely drawn out, but rather are just pins pulled on multiple grenades. As far as my prediction goes, who knows? I think if it were going to be an honest election between Biden and Trump, I think Trump kills it and not only wins the Electoral College, but also the popular vote as well. However, I don't think we are going to get an honest election. I am not sure they won't try and put Trump in jail or have him killed in order to invoke a knee-jerk reaction from the people in order to institute some form of martial law. I also can't imagine Biden actually campaigning in any capacity. They can continue to juice that guy up on whatever chemical cocktail he's on, but what goes up must come down. And I'm not sure he won't be offed either before the election so that he can be replaced and they can market his replacement as someone who is coming in to heal the nation in a very tough time. Honestly, at this point, nothing would really surprise me. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media and all the places.